Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our session. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you are doing well. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Marwa Shille, and I am the EducationUSA Advising Assistant based at the Amid East office in Ramallah, Al Beira, the West Bank. Today's session, we will cover the topic of transitioning to an American university with our guest speaker from Baylor University. Grace works at the undergraduate admissions office at Baylor, and she will talk to you today about how you can adapt to a new academic environment, what resources are available to international students when you get to campus. This is your chance also to ask her any questions that you may have. So if you are joining us from Facebook, you can also ask your questions by typing them in the comments section. So before I hand it over to Grace, I would like just briefly talk to you about Education USA and our services. So Education USA is a US Department of State network of over 430 international student advising centers in 178 countries and territories. And so our mission is to promote the US higher education around the world, and we help students through the whole admission and application process. Our services, they include many things, as you can see on the screen. We usually have in-center activities where we welcome students, parents, and counselors, and we have different sessions and individual consultations as well. We also have outreach sessions where we visit, high schools and universities, and we also used to have US university representatives who visited the country, and they meet with our students, and we connect them with high school counselors, and they visit high schools and universities so they can have the college fairs. Due to the global pandemic, and since March of last year, we have been doing everything virtually. Unfortunately, we cannot meet the students face to face, but we have been connecting with them online. And so just like today's session, we have different sessions on different topics and with different guest speakers, so you can learn more about the US higher education system. So the 5 steps to US study is the main guide that you should follow if you want to study in the US. And the Education USA website, which you can see on the screen in red, educationusa.state.gov, should be your first resource and website if you would like to know more about the US higher education system and the whole application process. And the website, it actually includes information for different levels of study, not only undergraduate, but graduate online programs, community colleges, and also English language programs. And the information is divided up to these 5 steps. The first step is to research your options. You need to carefully explore your options. There are more than 4,000 accredited US higher education institutions. And so you need to choose the best fit university or college for you, based on what you need and based on your goals. The second step is to finance your studies. You need to understand how much it will cost you to attend a specific university or college. And you need to understand if you need financial aid, will you find it, and what are the application requirements or eligibility requirements. The third step is to complete your application. Of course, you need to prepare yourself. It could be a time-consuming process for many students, as you need to take many tests and ask maybe for recommendation letters and other things that is involved in the application folder. And so you need to be committed to the process if you want to apply to US universities and colleges. The fourth step is to apply for your student visa. As an international student, if you want to travel to the US, of course, you need to apply for your student visa. And the fifth and final step is to prepare for your departure. And, through this final step, of course, you will have to make some travel arrangements. You have to contact your school, your college, your university to make any final arrangements before you travel to the US. And maybe you need to take some documents for your arrival as well. And, also what is included in this step is our pre-departure PreDeparture Orientation. Education USA offices around the world, they have a pre-departure orientation sessions for students who travel to the US to begin their academic program. And so through our PDOs, we usually cover different topics, just like the one today. And we actually invite a visa counselor officer who shared information about, maintaining your visa status, for example, in the United States. We also invite students who are currently studying in the US or those who have graduated, and they share their experiences about how to adapt to a new campus environment. They give you tips on the different classes and how they choose their majors and the extracurricular activities, and how to benefit from the different resources available for international students. On the Education USA website, you will see that there's a section specifically for any updates related to the pandemic, or updates on exchange programs, and also updates from the Department of Homeland Security. So you can check these updates at the top of the Education USA website. If you are from the West Bank, you can follow us on our social media platforms, which you can see on the screen. We have a Facebook page, Instagram and Twitter accounts, and also a YouTube channel. And you can also contact us via email at ramallah@educationusa.org. If you have any questions, anytime, we will answer your questions. If you are not from the West Bank, you can find the nearest Education USA Advising Center in your country on the Education USA website, and you can contact the Education USA advisors nearest to you. We also have different, virtual sessions. We have, for example, one on time management that's going to be next week. Our actually Education USA interns are going to present on this topic. We also have a session on community colleges and 2+2 transfer pathways and transfer partnerships. Another topic is how to complete your application for high school students. We also have another session on application overview and funding US studies with 6 different representatives. And each week we usually have our virtual office hour. It is open for the public, for anyone who might have questions about the US higher education system. So make sure that you follow us on our Facebook page, because we always add our events on our page. Also, other than just Education USA advising centers, many US universities and colleges, they offer virtual sessions specific for international students. And what you see on the screen is just one example. And this example, 5 different universities, they are actually having a series of webinars for this spring. And you can see that they are covering different topics like college search, building your application for US universities, and the rest as well. So if you are interested to learn more also about these opportunities, make sure that you check the university or college website and see what type of sessions they have specific for international students as well. And now I'm going to hand it over to our guest speaker today, Grace. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it. I'm so excited to get to meet with you guys. This has been in the planning for a long time. COVID kind of had to put everything on pause, but I'm really excited to be here with you guys, and hopefully sharing a little bit of information, maybe new, maybe old, but hopefully I'll impart a little bit of wisdom. But like Mara said, my name is Grace Stottlemyre. I'm one of the admissions representatives here at Baylor. I graduated actually from Baylor, did my undergrad there, and I graduated with a degree in international studies and French and a minor in religion. So if you have any questions specific to those majors or specific to the College of Arts and Sciences in general, or humanities, studying the humanities in the United States, please feel free to reach out. Education USA has been awesome. I actually was a student intern with them when I was in college. So I have seen firsthand on how helpful they are working with students, kind of getting them through the pipeline into the American university system. I worked with Education USA Algeria, just sending them a shout out, and they're fantastic over there, and you guys are too. So When in doubt, if you have any questions about anything I say today, reach out to your Education USA department. They're just absolutely fantastic. So helpful, so nice, and really want to help you guys succeed and get to go to, your dream college, which is fantastic. Awesome. So I'm going to be talking a little bit today about the academic transition, culture shock, that kind of thing. Can I click the next slide? Do I do that? Or is that? Oh, okay. Perfect. Thank you.
I will
Sorry.
do that. Just let me know when to go to the next slide. Okay.
Perfect. So here I have a little graph, and it might seem a little bit scary or nerve-wracking to you for now, but it definitely doesn't feel as dramatic as it definitely looks. And so this is just kind of a representation, something that we like to show our international students when they first arrive in the United States on what's going to be going on kind of in their brain and like with their emotions, kind of everything in the next 3 to 6 months. And so this whole process, basically, we call it culture shock, but it kind of moves from shock to, as you can see, acceptance. And so when you arrive into the United States, obviously it's going to be really exciting. You're going to be a little bit nervous, but excited to, start your studies. You're in this new place, So I work at Baylor, we're in Texas. So everything is way bigger in Texas, kind of some crazy people, you got some cowboys, you got a rodeo going on. And so it's just all these new and exciting things. But after you've been here for a few, maybe weeks, maybe a month-ish, you'll move into the actual culture shock, which can kind of lead you into kind of a funk, maybe a little bit of a depression where you're like, oh my goodness, I am just so frustrated. I don't understand why Texans do this, why Americans do this. Why do they, eat these massive hamburgers? Why do they do these weird things? Like they should do it like we do it, in the West Bank, like we do it so much better, and we totally get that. And sometimes it can just be so frustrating. Sometimes you just want to eat home cooked food. Sometimes you just want to speak your native language, and, speaking in English is like just, you're over it by now. You don't want to hear another English word. And so sometimes our students just kind of fall into a funk and they just get a little bit frustrated with what's going on around them. But don't worry, because it's all a part of the process as you kind of keep going in your undergraduate career. And again, this whole process takes 3 to 6 months-ish. And so it's not going to be your whole 4 years. You're not going to be really sad and angry. But you'll move up into kind of an adjustment period where you're like, you know what? Okay, I can kind of see why they do it like this. We still do it better back at home, but whatever, I'll give it to them. And then you'll finally move up into an acceptance period where you say, okay, you know what? That's just how they do it. I'm not going to try to fight it. That's just what they do. And there will be many little things that you'll see. Based on my experience, a lot of my students get freaked out when, like, Americans don't take their shoes off inside, or, we drink straight from the tap, which for some of my Algerian students, they were like, what? Like, no, don't do that. That's dirty. That's gross. But we're like, whatever. And so it's just little small things every day that you'll see, like, oh, it's just different. But as you can see on the bottom part of the graph, on the, what is that, x-axis, if I can go back to my math days, the longer that you stay and the more patience that you have with yourself and with others, the smoother the transition is going to be. And again, not everyone's culture shock or transition is this dramatic, and sometimes you're like, I'm great, nothing is going wrong, and you've been here for 2 years and you're flying high, and we hope that is what happens, but we just want to help kind of prepare you just in the case that doesn't all go as smoothly as you hoped. So on my next slide, you can kind of see, oh, perfect. You can kind of see that class size and class dynamic here in the United States is going to be a little bit different. So I have slides from my university, just because that's the information that I have access to. But if you look at different universities around the country, you can kind of see that each one of them has different class sizes. They have different priorities in terms of teaching. They have different student to faculty ratios. And so while you're deciding, kind of like step one in the Education USA process, you're kind of deciding where do you want to go. And so all of these are factors when it comes to deciding what university you want to go to, what they offer you, what you're comfortable with. And so our class size is relatively small, especially for our size of university. And I think generally in the United States, you will find that aside from your entry-level courses, your big Biology 101 or your Math 101, those will probably be bigger just because everyone needs to take them. But once you move up into your more specialized courses, you'll find that your class sizes will shrink significantly. And so the dynamic is a little bit different in classes here in the United States versus abroad. And so we generally, especially in the humanities and the social sciences, I would say, as well as science courses, this applies kind of across the board. We emphasize something called a Socratic seminar style class. And so you might be familiar with that. You might do that right now in your high school, you might not. And so what that means basically is that the whole class is basically just a professor-led discussion. So your professor isn't going to just sit there and lecture at you and say, these are the facts A, B, C, and D, go home, memorize them, and spit them up on the test tomorrow. You'll find that maybe more common, again, like I said, in maybe math classes where you can't really discuss math too much, or maybe your hard sciences. But for the most part, you will find a more discussion-based class. Professors really want to hear from you. They want to hear from your experience. And so what we really encourage our international students to do is to speak up in class. And so it might be a little bit intimidating, especially if, you know, our American students are kind of used to that style of course. And so they're always shouting out their opinions and they're like, no, I think this, I agree, I disagree, that kind of thing. We do it respectfully, of course, even if we disagree with one another. But we do really encourage our international students because you guys are international. You have different experiences. You grew up a different way. You've seen different things. You've spoken different languages. And so you have really valuable experience to share with the professor who doesn't have those experiences, with the teacher, with the other students, even with other international students, because you guys aren't the same. You guys are all different. And so that kind of changes your way of thinking, your perspective, all of that stuff. And so we really, really do value all of that. And we encourage you guys to speak up in class, share your opinion, share your thought, even if it's really uncommon, even if, you know, you're the only one in the class that thinks that. I've definitely been that student. So don't be afraid to do that, but that is something that is a little bit different. A lot of times your professor will have you read some material before class. And so once you've read that material, you might have some questions, you might not understand it, then you come to class and then you discuss, you know, what is the text saying? Why do we disagree? Why do we agree? You know, what can we pull from it? What is the information that we can kind of derive from that? So that's just one quick thing that might be a little bit different, a little bit unique about American style courses in the United States. And so for the next slide, I'd like to touch on as well the difference between international faculty and or faculty that you find in international universities versus faculty that you find here in the United States. And so a lot of times our students are really freaked out when they come to the US and they meet their professors, because our professors are much more relaxed than you'll find in the international community. There's much more of a partnership. Our professors do like to say that they're partners in learning with their students. And so they'll say many times, wow, I learned a lot from you guys today. When really you're like, no, I should learn a lot from you. Like, you're my professor. But they really do see themselves as learning along with you guys. So a lot of times class structure, class style will be very informal. You don't even have to raise your hand. They want to get to know you, you know, your personality, what you're interested in, that kind of thing. A lot of times I personally have had professors invite our class over for dinner. There was a football game on, I think it was the Sunday, or Sunday. So professional football in the US is huge, as I'm sure you guys have seen. And so he invited us all over to watch the game. And we had a potluck, which is an American word, which just means like everyone brings an item, a food item. And it's just like a mess of like all different kinds of food. And we just all got to hang out and meet his family, see his dog, his cat, all that kind of stuff. And so it is a very personal relationship, but it's very informal. That's what I meant to say. And so a lot of times our international students can feel apprehensive about approaching a professor because maybe based on their experience, the professor is very serious or doesn't really want to engage personally with a student. But in the United States, our professors really want to get to know them. So they have office hours, which is a significant or a specific time every week where their office is just open. And so you can pop in, you can ask a question about the material in class, or you can just say, hey, I'd love to get to know you. Can I talk to you about the research that you're doing, or can I talk to you about something going on in my life? And so they're a great resource to kind of help you, again, through that transition, through that culture shock. You can say, hey, oh my goodness, I just don't understand why you're teaching the class like this, or I don't understand why the student in my class said this. Can you help explain it to me? And so they're always more than happy to help with that. I did have, when I was working with international students in my undergrad, we had a professor that would wear flip-flops to class, and they were very distressed because they were like, that's not right. Like, he should not do that. That's just so unprofessional. But here we're like, you know what? You just go with the flow. And again, like you saw on the graph, they slowly moved up to acceptance, and they were like, okay, fine. He wears flip-flops. We're not going to try to make him wear regular shoes. But it's just a funny little difference that we have here in the US. Awesome. And so for my next slide, we have on here, what we have at Baylor is the Carol Cyrus Writing Center, which is just a writing center that helps students with, essays, things like that. But my point for this slide is that even though you can speak such good English, even though you might speak English fluently, even if English is your first language, but you've lived in the West Bank your whole life, once you move to the United States, English is still going to be different. It's still going to be a little bit of a game changer here, because the way we speak and the way that American college students speak is going to still be very different from what you've grown up hearing. Even if, like, we've had students that have American parents and they've just grown up overseas, still when they come to the United States, they're fluent in English, but they're like, what do the words mean? That, like, what are these colloquial terms that I've never heard before? So be patient with yourself. The way that American college students speak, it's not quite like the movies, but it is close. But even in like Texas, for example, we say y'all, which you guys might have heard. It's you all, like you guys, everyone. And you'll hear that a lot. And so sometimes our international students are like, why are you saying that? Like, that doesn't make sense. But it's just like a colloquial term that we say, especially in the South. You'll find that there's lots of little idioms and phrases that are used. I'm originally from Florida, and so I'm still getting the hang of it in Texas. Sometimes the Texan will say something to me and I'm like, excuse me? Like, is that an insult? But it's just a saying. It's just a funny little thing, little like quip that they have. And so you're always learning, even if you speak English fluently, like I said. As well as writing can also be different than what you have learned. And so sometimes the way that English is taught to American students, grammar and punctuation can be different from the way you learn it growing up. So when you come to the United States, we do encourage all of our students. So that can be all of our international students as well as our domestic students really take advantage of the resources that the university has to offer. Just about every university will have some form of a writing center or writing help or something like that. And we do really recommend that students take advantage of it and go and bring your essays, bring your papers in and say, hey, can you just go over my grammar? Can you go over my punctuation and make sure that it's to the standard, the college level, or I'm understanding how I need to use this correctly. I did that when I was in undergrad, and it was really, really helpful. It definitely saved my butt a lot of times. I'm not a good speller, and so I had to bring my paper in a lot of times and say, did I spell that right? And so it's just really helpful for all of our students, not just international, but domestic as well. So that's a huge resource that I would definitely recommend. And so for our kind of resources section of this presentation, I'll be talking about a little bit specifically about Baylor, but most of the programs that I'll mention are going to be available at almost every, regular sized university, unless you have like a university that's like 100 students. Any kind of like regular size university will have these resources available for international students. And I highly recommend that you take advantage of them. Don't be shy. Don't think that, it looks bad or that you shouldn't, because we have them here for you guys. We have these also similar resources for our domestic students as well. So we're not just calling out our international students. We want all of our students to be as successful as possible when they come to the United States, because college is hard, university is hard. We're not denying that. It's hard for our domestic students, it's hard for international students, it's hard for everyone. And so that's why we put these programs in place, so that you can be as successful as possible to achieve your goals of graduating and getting a job or going to grad school, doing whatever you're passionate about. And so the first resource that you will come into contact with as you're applying to universities in the United States is the International Admissions Department. And so any school that you're applying to will have a specific international admissions department, and they will be professionals. That's where I work. They will be professionals in international applications. And so please take advantage of them if you have any questions at all about, I don't understand this part of my application. Like Mara was saying, like it's a complicated process. And so they're always very helpful in, helping you write an essay or, get your English proficiency documentation in. They will be like your go-to help for all of that. So please feel free, if you go online, if you just Google the college, like you could Google Baylor International Admissions, click on the page, and they'll have contact information on there. So that'll be universal for all of American universities as well. And then we also have an International Student and Scholar Services. So that will be available once you become a current student. And so that resource is great. Again, they have this resource just about everywhere. That is great for students who, want to go to the grocery store, but they don't have a ride. They can get connected that way. Or if you want to get a driver's license while you're here because you want to get a car, fantastic. We can help you out with that in that department. They're very good about helping our students maintain status in the United States, which is very, very important, as I'm sure you're probably thinking about in the back of your mind as you go through getting your student visa. It's a lot of work. You don't want to lose that hard work. And so they'll be really great help, working with you, making sure you get your I-20 all filled in and the appropriate either F1 or J1 visa all figured out. And so they're just extremely, extremely helpful. So my next slide has to do with the counseling services that are available here in the United States. And so I don't want to speak to the experience of y'all. Unfortunately, I've never been to the West Bank. Kind of wish I could go. Even though I interned for EducationUSA Algeria, it was a virtual internship, so I never got the chance to go, especially now with COVID. It's looking kind of rough in terms of travel, but would love, love, love to go over to that section of the world and meet everyone and just kind of see what life is like. But anyways, so I won't speak to y'all's experience and what life is like for you, but in the United States, we really pay a lot of attention to mental health and we have different mental health services available for our students. It's not something that's taboo here. It's something that most of our students are very open about, very honest, just because it can be a very relatable topic for a lot of college students. Coming to college can be a big change for a lot of kids, domestic or international. And sometimes you just need to talk to someone and vent, or you just need to complain, or you are struggling with something. You're struggling being away from your parents. You're, you're missing home, that kind of thing. And it's a huge, extremely common issue here. Again, like I said, domestic and international sides as well. And so we do have, in most universities as well, have counseling services available for all students. I think at Baylor specifically, we have a couple counselors that specifically speak Spanish, I know for sure, Hindi, I believe as well. I don't know if we have any Arabic counselors, but you can always reach out, when you're looking at a university, and ask your admissions department, say, excuse me, do you have any, like if I were to take advantage of these counseling services, do you have any counselors that speak Arabic so I could speak in my native language and get my point across clearly, or whatever your native language is, if it's English or Spanish or French or whatever, and see if that's an option, see if that's a resource that they have available for you, because that can also be really helpful as well. So you don't have to worry about the language barrier. But I mean, those counseling services are available for all of our students. You could be struggling, mentally, emotionally, or just academically. I mean, even if you're like, I'm really struggling with like time commitments and like things like that, getting my homework in. I think I just need to talk to someone about it. You can just pop in and, vent to someone for 30 minutes. And trust me, you'll feel so much better afterwards. So a great resource for our students, especially as you're going, again, like I said, through that curve of, maybe a little bit of anxiety, maybe a little bit of depression, on the low end. It can just be really great to have someone to talk to you about that. Awesome. So we do have, on the next slide, International Student Academic Support departments. And so these are departments specifically for international students to help them out, to give them a boost up. We do have kind of versions for international students as well as our domestic students. So one of our departments is career services. We have a career and professional development department. And so they work really hard with all of our students to do internships, jobs, work study. That's a big thing that a lot of my students ask about is, can I work while I'm here in the United States? The answer is yes, but only on campus. So that you cannot work off campus, but you can work on campus. And so career services and career and professional development will be able to help you find a job on campus. You can work in the library, at an office, in the dining hall, whatever you kind of want to do. Up to 20 hours a week, but definitely ask your EducationUSA resources about that, because they have so much information about how to go about that and all kinds of stuff. But they work, again, with our international students even doing internships for the summer. And so once you guys are here, you might say, oh, I really want to get some more hands-on experience in business or accounting. So you'll go to our department and you'll say, I'm looking for an internship for the summer. And so at Baylor, we're located in between Dallas and Austin, Texas. And then we have Houston a little bit further away. So those are 3 huge cities that you'll have access to already. And the university that you choose might be in a huge city. You might go to NYU, which is in New York City, massive place. So there's always opportunities to get an internship, to get a job, to get some sort of to shadow people. In Waco specifically, where Baylor is located, we have a lot of medical services, a couple of hospitals, things like that. And so our pre-health and pre-med students always get internships, or they're able to shadow a physician for a few weeks or for a summer, so they can say, do I really like this? Do I think I would really want to, or does blood make me squeamish? In that case, maybe I don't want to be a doctor. And so it's just a great opportunity to see if you're really interested in the field that you've chosen. and to get some hands-on experience as well. And so they're always really helpful in finding you those opportunities, connecting you with agencies or organizations to get you that job. So on my next slide, I have our, so at Baylor, we're the Baylor Bears. And so we have 2 Black bears here on campus. And so what we do is we say "sick 'em" here on campus. That's like our rally cry. And so we taught our little bears to do the same thing, which is so cute. And so I will leave you guys with a "sick 'em" before I answer some questions. And then my next slide is just some contact information. If you want to reach out to me about Baylor specifically, that'd be great. Or also just like general questions. I'd be more than happy to answer any of them. I understand this process is crazy. And even though I only have a tiny bit of Education USA experience, I could try to help you with anything like that. But again, Mara will be a fantastic resource for you. I'm telling you, we just have just great results from kids that go through Education USA. So 10 out of 10 would recommend reaching out to her and to your local resource as well. And if you guys have any other questions, please feel free to throw them in the chat, or anyone on Facebook that's listening as well. And I'd love to answer those.
Thank you so much, Grace, for all the information and resources that you shared with our audience. We did receive a couple of questions. Some of them messaged me directly. So we're going to start with the first question, which you already answered about the office hours for professors that is available for all students. You can always contact your professors and talk to them about your academics. And also Grace, she talked about, the informal relationships with professors as well, so they can support you as undergraduate students. So one student sent me a message asking, is there a way where a university can connect me to my roommate before I travel to the United States?
Yeah, that's a good question. That is just a fantastic question. I haven't gotten that a lot. Yes, so you can kind of figure out your roommate situation one of 2 ways. And this again applies to most universities in the United States. One, if you know someone that you want to room with, there'll be like a form or an application that you fill out for housing, and that you'll get information for once you become a student. So you can request to live with a specific person if you know someone. If you know someone else who's coming from the West Bank and you're like, hey, let's go together so we don't room with any crazies, you can definitely do that. Or another very common way, or a way that you might see in like American TV or movies, is like a random placement. So you'll fill out a quick little questionnaire about, what time do you get up? What time do you go to bed? Are you really messy? Are you really clean? Do you like loud noises? How much do you study? That kind of thing. And then the computer will like generate a roommate for you that matches with kind of your preferences. So it's almost like a dating app, but like for roommates, to see if you guys would be good fits. Because you don't want to room with, if you go to bed early, wake up early, you don't want to go to bed or room with someone who goes to bed late and wakes up late. You just want to find someone who, or is at your level of like cleanliness. That's always good. You don't want to have a really, really dirty, really messy roommate. And so that's the second way that you'll find a roommate, but that's how you'll get randomly placed with someone. That's a great question.
Thank you, Grace. Our next question is from Isam. He's asking, what do Baylor look for in an applicant for undergraduate study?
That's a great question, yeah. So for Baylor specifically, we have a very holistic review process, and you'll probably hear those words from a lot of different universities when you are starting your kind of search. And so basically what that means is that we don't look at just one thing. We're not just going to look at your GPA. We're not just going to look at your test scores and say, oh, you're in or you're out. What we do is we kind of compile all the information that you give us, your GPA, your test scores, your transcript, your resume. We like to look at what your essay as well. We like to look at what you are involved in outside of the classroom as well. That's a big thing that you'll probably find in American admissions that you might not find in international admissions is that there is a pretty big focus on extracurricular activities, and you will be encouraged to do extracurriculars when you're in undergrad as well. And so we like to see that you're active, you're playing a sport, or you are you're in a club, or you started doing community service, whatever it is, whatever you're passionate about, whatever you're interested in. We just like to see that you're, working towards something, that you have kind of some goals and some plans, that you have some interests, because everyone has like their passion, their kind of dream. And so we like to see that you're already starting to go for it. If you like gardening, that's fantastic. Like, tell us about it, tell us what makes you unique, and what makes you a great student. And yes, of course, we will look at your GPA. That will be considered. If you have a 0 GPA, maybe not, but literally just a 0. I don't even know if that's possible. But if you are on the lower end of the GPA spectrum, that's not going to automatically disqualify you, if that makes sense. And if you're on the higher end of the GPA spectrum, just because you have a high GPA doesn't guarantee that you get in. And so we just look at everything. We want to see that you're excited about coming to the college that you're applying to. So that would be Baylor for me. And we want to see like you wanting to take advantage of the programs, the opportunities that we have here. So a piece of advice that I would give you is if you can find like the program that you want to enter at your university of choice, mention that, like in a short answer essay that they give you, say, I'm specifically interested in such and such program, or this club, or this organization, whatever it is. And this is why, because I'm passionate about helping kids read, or whatever, because then we can see, wow, they really did their research. They looked through it. We can see them kind of at our campus, at our university. So yeah, that's another great question.
Thank you, Grace. And I would just like to add and say that the most important thing is to start early. The earlier you begin the process, the more time you have to prepare yourself, to work on your GPA, to be involved in different extracurricular activities, to work on your writing and English language skills if you are weak and would like to advance yourself in the English language skills. And so the earlier you start, the more time you have to prepare yourself and to do the whole research process and applying to US universities and colleges. And we have a question from Maisa. Could you tell us more about work on campus for international students?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So kind of like I said, so international students cannot work off campus because of visa regulations and all that complicated stuff that I won't get into, that I don't even know about, but they can work on campus. And so they can work up to 20 hours a week. It's capped at 20 hours because I think that applies to almost every university. Mara, you probably know more than I.
Yes, that's true. And they can work up to 40 hours during like the summer or their breaks as well.
Awesome. Yeah. So you definitely have, a lot of time to work. You can kind of make some extra money if that's what you want to do. And so the reason that they cap you there is because they want to make sure that you have enough time to focus on your studies, that you're not just working, because you are here to be a student and learn. And so, yeah, you can just apply through the student employment page on any university's website. It's super easy. I mean, it's not going to be like a really rigorous, like you're not going to have to sit down for 5 or 6 interviews, because they'll just be like office jobs, maybe to be a receptionist in a certain department, or you can always work in the dining hall, you can always work at the library, at the bookstore, things like that. So I know for Baylor, there's hundreds of different opportunities to work on campus. And so usually pay starts at the state minimum wage. And so for Texas, the state and federal minimum wage is the same, $7.25 an hour, $7.25. And that it'll depend what you'll see once you come to America, that everything just depends on the state, which can be a little bit confusing. And so that might be something that factors into your decision, you know. Maybe I want to go to a school where minimum wage is $10 an hour, $15 an hour. I will warn you though, that just because the minimum wage is higher might mean that cost of living is also higher. So it usually in the end just kind of balances out. So here you can get like a taco meal for like $3. But in New York City, that's not really, you're not going to find that there. So it does just kind of depend. But you can keep a job for the full 4 years that you're on campus. Like Mara said, you can work during the summer and make some extra money that way as well. But it's a great opportunity to get some experience as well. If you are interested in a specific department, you can apply to work for that specific department. And sometimes actually research positions are paid. I have had some students that were able to find paid research positions on campus as well. And so if you're interested in that, in like science, technology, you know, health sciences, that's also a great thing to look at. And that's a question you could ask admissions officers as well. Do you have paid research opportunities?
Thank you, Grace. Our next question, safety is a big concern for my parents. Can you please talk more about your safety procedures on campus?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, so we get this question a lot. I know the US kind of has a bad rap sometimes, but definitely once you get here, it won't be as bad or as scary as it might look in movies and TV and what you hear on the news, I promise you. I'll speak to Baylor. Again, like I've been just saying this entire time, generally, what I'll say here that applies to Baylor will generally apply to most universities. So we have our own police department, Baylor Police BPD, Baylor Police Department, that patrols our campus area. I think every single university that I have spoken to or known of has their own police force. And so that's also, it's not always for like imminent danger, but they just have it for, you know, kids that are speeding on the road, or you know, if your car breaks down, you can always call BUPD, all that kind of stuff. And so we have patrol cars that go around our campus 24/7, 365, all day, every day, ready to help. We have an emergency contact to them specifically, as well as our regular 911 to like the Waco City Police. So basically when you're at a university, you have two different police forces that are ready to come help you if you need help. On campus specifically, we have what's called a blue light system that I think is mandatory across all campuses in the United States. And basically it's these huge yellow poles with a blue light on top. And there's a red button on the pole. And if you hit the red button, it immediately calls the police. So I think their response time is like 30 seconds or a minute or something like crazy fast. I'm like, how do they even get in your car so fast? I can't do that. So they show up as quickly as possible if that button is pushed. And the point about the blue light system is that there's not just one. At any location that you are, I'll try to explain this well. At any location that you are at on campus, you will always, and you legally have to see a blue light pole. So you'll never be farther than eye distance from a pole on campus. So I think that they have to be like, there's one every 30 feet or something like that. But that's a really great safety resource. I have never had to use. I have never known anyone that has had to use it or heard of anyone that has had to use it. I would say the biggest threat to safety that we have here is off campus. Sometimes cars get broken into, and you know, if you don't have a car, then you don't have to worry about it. So, and that's just for people that, you know, might leave like money out on the seat, or, you know, so as long as we just tell our students, like, just be smart. You know, if you're just smart and you think about oh, let me not leave a $20 bill out on my driver's seat, you're gonna be just fine. I've been in Waco for 5 years. I've never had anything happen. And again, I've never heard of anything happening crime-wise to any of our students. But it is, I do understand that it is a big concern that definitely is valid. Yeah, that's kind of how we approach like crime here in the US. So yeah, that's a good question.
That's great. Thank you, Grace. So 2 more questions. Do you offer a study abroad program, and do you offer virtual events to learn more about campus life at Baylor?
Yeah, that's another great question. So for study abroad, yes, we have a study abroad department, which maybe I should have put in my slides. I'll remember that for next time. So yes, we do have a study abroad department, and we encourage our students so much to study abroad. We think it is, even our international students, we think it is a fantastic opportunity and an opportunity that you won't really get at any other point in your life. You know, once you kind of graduate from undergrad or grad school, you're never going to be able to just take 6 months and go live in the south of France, or, you know, go to Ireland or Australia or like anywhere in Latin America or Africa, anything like that. And so we really encourage our students to take advantage of it because it really is kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity. And so it's generally pretty easy to study abroad. We have many different programs. You know, you can find them on our study abroad website. We have them all over the world. And if there isn't a country that you want to go to on our list, you can always start a new program. So that's a really great opportunity as well. So if you want to go to Madagascar and we don't have anything in Madagascar, you can say, oh, I found a school that'll take me, so I'm gonna go. And we'll say, that sounds awesome. Make sure your credits transfer. And so that's really all you need to worry about that. We do have some specific study abroad programs that are specifically for different majors. So our engineering students have a study abroad program. They go, I think, to Australia, if I'm not mistaken. Our business students actually take like a tour of Europe together. So go look at different European business styles. We have a pre-dentistry track. And so they go on a study abroad in Africa, and they actually set up, I do not remember which country it is, unfortunately, but they actually set up a free dental clinic while they're there, so they can go and like learn from like local dentists and things like that, and then get some hands-on experience as well. And so there's just tons and tons of different opportunities like that, and I would highly recommend that you take advantage. We also have scholarships, I'll mention, specifically for studying abroad. So if you are like, I don't think I'll be able to afford it, there are scholarships specifically for students to study abroad that are pretty easy to access as well. So that's a great question.
That's awesome. 2 more questions. We have a couple of minutes left. So what are some of the most popular clubs on campus at Baylor? And are there any virtual activities for students happening now at Baylor because of the pandemic?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there are virtual activities. If you go specifically to our Baylor website, you'll see, like to our admissions website, you'll see that we have a list of virtual events that you can find that you can join. That might be like, I just finished an event actually about finishing your applications. And so you might see me on the other end of that webinar as well. But they have lots of different kind of like walkthroughs. A lot of schools as well, including Baylor, have virtual visits. So if you just want to take a look at the campus, we have a virtual visit option available. And so that's really fun as well. You can have your own personal private tour on their little camera phone, like walking you around campus and everything. And so you can ask them questions as well. And that's a great opportunity to get more information. Clubs and organizations, I would say, Baylor specifically has a huge pre-health focus and a huge pre-health department. So I wouldn't say the majority, but many of our students come to Baylor for the pre-health program, for the pre-health department. And so a lot of our clubs and organizations are dedicated to pre-health. you know, how do you become a doctor successfully? How do you enter into research, that kind of thing. We also have fraternities and sororities like Greek life, which are generally pretty popular. And so you'll see, I'm sure you guys have seen that in the movies and TV shows. Basically, they're just like groups of groups of girls or boys, and then they kind of get together. They have events. They usually have a philanthropy that they raise money for an organization. And so that's pretty popular. And then we have some multicultural organizations, which I would say is our third most popular, probably, set of clubs. And so what we don't have and we need to have is any like Middle East, North Africa student club. So if you guys are looking at Baylor and you get here, I want you to start, you know, Baylor Middle East students organization or something, because we do not have that. We have just about everything else: Hispanic Student Association, African Student Association, South Asian Student Association, everything that you could imagine. But we do not have Middle Eastern Student Association. And I would love to go to any events that they would put on or any food that would be provided, because that would be the best. But that's a huge pull as well. So definitely would recommend checking this out.
Well, fingers crossed. Let's hope that will happen in the near future. Thank you so much, Grace. We have answered all of the questions. We actually received a question on Facebook about graduate study. If you want to learn more about graduate study, please contact us after this session on Facebook or on email, ramallah@educationusa.org, and we will provide you with more information on graduate study and pursuing your master's degree in the US. Again, thank you so much, Grace, for all of the information that you have shared with us today. And thank you everyone also who joined us on Zoom and also on Facebook. Enjoy your evening or the rest of the day, depending on where you are right now. Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all. Thank you for having me.